Storing conditions. Since the entire idea of food storage program is that it should be available for you and yours in times of needs, it's important to understand the conditions that can affect the edibles stored in your pantry. A storage program is only as good as the quality of food that goes into it. It can't get any better than what originally went in, but it certainly can get worse. In the fullness of time, all stored foods will degrade in nutrient content and palatability until they reach the inevitable end where even the dog won't eat them. It's because of this eventuality that every article, book, and teacher concerned with putting food gives the same advice. Date all food containers and rotate, rotate, rotate. The first food in should be the first food out. This concept is often shortened to the acronym FIFO. The reason for this emphasis on stock rotation is that when discussing the usefulness of foodstuffs, there are really two shelf lives to be considered. The first is the nutrient content of the food. This actually begins to fade right at the moment of harvest. Three factors dictate nutritional shelf life: the food's initial nutritional content, the processing and preservation steps it underwent, and its storing conditions. Eventually, the nutrition will dwindle away to nothing. At some point, you'll have to decide whether the remaining nutrition is worth the space the food is taking up, and if it should be rotated out of storage. The second shelf life is a food's palatability life, or the point at which undesirable changes occur to its taste, texture, color, and cooking qualities. This is the reason for the use by and sell by dates on many foods, and for shelf lives in general. It will almost always be in excess of good nutritional life. If you don't have anything to replace it with, it's not necessary to throw out the food just because it's reached the end of its best palatable storage life. Do, however, keep in mind that advancing age will only further decrease the useful nutrition, increase the food's unattractiveness, and enlarge the chances that something may cause the food to spoil. Within reason, the key to prolonging the shelf life of your edibles lies in lowering the temperature of the area they're stored in. The storage lives of most foods are cut in half by every increase of 18 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius. For example, if you've stored your food in a garage that has a temperature of 90 degrees Fahrenheit, you should expect a shelf life less than half of what could be obtained at room temperature, which is 70 degrees Fahrenheit. This, in turn, is less than half the storage life that you could get if you kept them in your refrigerator at 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Your storage area should be located where the temperature can be kept above freezing, 32 degrees Fahrenheit, and possible below 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Ideally, your storage location should have a humidity level of 15% or less, but unless you live in the desert, it's not terribly likely that you'll be able to achieve this. Regardless, moisture is not good for your stored edibles, so you want to minimize it as much as possible. This can be done by several methods. The first is to keep the area air-conditioned and or dehumidified during the humid times of the year. The second is to use packaging impervious to moisture, and then to deal with the moisture trapped inside. If you're able, there's no reason not to do both. All containers should be kept off the floor and out of direct contact from exterior walls to reduce the chances of condensation. Another major threat to your food is oxygen. Chances are, if you've sealed it in a moisture-proof container, then they're probably airtight as well. This means that the oxygen can also be kept from doing its damage. If no more can get in, your only concern is the O2 that was trapped in the container when it was sealed. Lowering the percentage of O2 to 2% or less of the atmosphere trapped in the packaging, called head gas, can greatly contribute to extending the contents of its shelf life. The three main tactics for achieving this are vacuum sealing, flushing with inert gas, or chemically absorbing the oxygen. Any one or combination of the three can be used to good effect. Once you have temperature, humidity, and oxygen under control, it's then necessary to look at light. Light is a form of energy, and when it shines in your stored foods long enough, it transfers some of that energy to the food. This has the effect of degrading its nutritional content and appearance. Fat-soluble vitamins such as A, D, and E are particularly sensitive to light degradation. It certainly is a pretty sight to look at rows and rows of jars full of delicious food, particularly if you were the one that put the food in those jars. However, if you want to keep them at their best, you'll admire them only when you turn the light on in the pantry to retrieve one. If you don't have a room that can be dedicated to this purpose, then store the jars in a cardboard box that they came in. This will protect them not only from light, but also help to cushion them from shocks which might break a jar or cause it to lose its seal. For those of you in earthquake country, it's particularly a good idea. When terra is no longer firma, your jars might just dance right off onto the floor. Assuming they were properly processed in the first place, canned, dried, and frozen never-thawed foods do not become unsafe when stored longer than the recommended time, but their nutrient quality fades and their flavor goes downhill. Following these rules of good storage will help keep your food wholesome and nutritious for as long as possible. Number 1, first in, first out, FIFO means rotating your storage. Number 2, cooler is better. Number 3, drier is better. Number 4, less oxygen exposure means more shelf life. Number 5, don't shed light on your food.